Okay, sorry. And then I'm just starting a new video because when they get to be about 15 minutes, it's just torture to upload them because I do it all from my phone. So, and it's too long for people to watch, honestly. So my kids are like, I don't want to watch your videos. They're 10, 15 minutes long. But this is for my kids. I want them to watch it. But anyway, so then about my son is he had lost his check yesterday from his job, and it's his first full-time job, and he's making more money than he's ever made before, and he's working very hard. He gets up at 3 in the morning to get ready and go to work, and it's been an adjustment for the whole family, and he wants that paycheck, and he just got, I think, his first like full-time hours paychecks, like the biggest check he's probably ever received, and for whatever reason, because he's so new, so he's not set up for the direct deposit yet. And then I guess they give the checks out in person. You have to sign for them, and they had they were looking for the check. They couldn't find it. It was like a big drama. They had to find his check, and I guess it was in a different spot. They were going to mail it out. So then finally they could give it to him, and then he got to sign off on it. So it was just a drama just to even get the check into his hands, right? And then he put it into his pocket, his like pants, jeans pocket, and rode his bike home. And then somehow along the way he thought maybe when he unlocked, like put it in his hands in his pocket to get his keys to unlock his bike from the bike lock thing, that he thought maybe the check fell out then, and he was just so saddened that he had lost this check. And he was like, I found him on the hammock, and he was clearly unhappy, and he always kind of has quiet time when he's not like really in touch with his emotions, where he'll like he holds it all in, so it's like you don't see him ever cry or yell or whatever, but you'll see him simmer, or you'll see him just tense, and he retains it. And similarly, you don't see him like super happy a lot. He'll obviously you do, but he's not an outwardly emotionally expressive person. He's a internal like thinker, and so he keeps a lot of that emotion to himself. And even when he's happy, he'll be like straight-faced, but he'll be feeling happy on the inside, but it doesn't show to other people, and so then they don't know how to read that. They don't understand that he's actually feeling happy. Anyway, so he was clearly unhappy about something, and then I was talking to him when he was over at the hammock, and he was explaining that he had lost the check and how hard it was to get it, and I was kind of reassuring him, like, don't worry, that your company will have a process for lost or stolen checks. They will be able to do a stop payment on it. They'll be able to issue you a replacement. And I was speaking all confidently, like I knew, because that's the policy at my work. But maybe it's not the policy everywhere, so I could have been overconfident about that. He was saying no, that's not how it works for them. And but I think he felt better. I'm like, you might have to file a police report if you think it's stolen, or if somebody else cashes it, or and I was kind of like coaching him through it. And then I think he felt a little better. Like, he came in the house, and he was just going to deal with it on Monday because it's a weekend. And but we were all sort of worried about somebody stealing the money, like forging his name and all of that. And then, and I was like, we got to pray about this. Oh. Well, okay, yeah. So I was feeling like we needed to pray about it. And, but I didn't like pray with him or anything. I was just making a mental note, like I should pray with Will later. And anyway, then I had gone to church, and that's when they were talking about money stuff. So money stuff was just on our mind this whole day. They were talking about money stuff, and then I had gotten to the store with my daughter because she wanted to buy a gift for her dad, and I had paid in cash, and so then we had just probably $8 left of this cash. And then as we're leaving the store, we did see a person with a sign, which I was just talking about in my last video. And so we gave him all the leftover cash, because my daughters were like, do we have any money? And I was like, no, we spent it all. But then I was like, okay, well, no, we do have $8 left. So then we gave that money to that person. And then on the way home, we were looking like, because we just thought, because he works at the place where we had actually gone shopping, and so we just thought, well, we'll look on the way home on the route that he would have taken on his bike to see, like, do we see the check randomly, like, it was kind of a long shot, but we're just kind of looking out the car window, like, any litter I would see, I'd be like, is that it? Because I can't tell as the driver, like, is that piece of litter a check? It could be, but it was kind of like, it was worth a shot. My daughter was on the passenger side, and we were like, is that it? We kept pulling over. Is that it? And then we got a couple blocks away from the house, maybe 3 blocks away. And then I looked over and I was like, is that it? And my daughter looked out her window and she was like, that is it. She said, it has a such and such logo. She says the name of the company. And we're like, and I'm waiting in the car like, did we just find his check? And then she brought it inside and she said, it says blah, 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 blah. And she said his whole first and last name was written on there. And I was like, wow, like we found the check. And then it was kind of open. And so she's looking inside. She's like, well, there's no check in here. And I'm like, oh, I was thinking, bummer. Like, did someone take it? Like, is this just the stub? Because I don't know what his checks normally look like. I'm like, is this just the stub? And at least then we have the check number and all of that, which I know his employer would have too. But it was just so interesting that we found it. And then my daughter was kind of ripping something else open, and there was this part where it was like, endorse here, and she kind of looked in this other like secret hidden away window, and she was like, is that a check? And I was peeking in because I'm trying to drive too, and I'm like, I think that is the check. And we just weren't sure because I was driving and she doesn't know what she's doing, and it was like cumbersome and hard to see. And so then I looked closer. I'm like, that is the check. It's in there. It's just like you open the thing up and then there's a secret extra spot you have to open over here to like get at the check. And I'm like, we found his check. Like, I was like, sure, this was God. I was like, this is God, because of all the financial stuff that had been going on that day that was just on our minds and on our hearts and that we were thinking about. And I was like, this is 100% God. And then, of course, I think everything's God, but regardless, and my daughter wanted to be the one to give it to him, and so then we went in his room and we gave him his check, and he looked at it and he was like, well, somebody else opened this, because he hadn't opened it. It was brand new, fresh and clean when he put it in his pocket. He's like, somebody else opened it to try to steal his money, his check, and then they must have thrown it down, didn't look as hard as we were looking at it, and not realize the check was in there, and they threw it down on the ground and left it, and or whatever, however that played out. And but he wasn't the one who opened it, which is interesting, and yet the check was still inside safe. And so then he divulged, he said that earlier in the day when he was on the hammock, he said he was, and he's not a believer, and he once sort of believed more in God, but he tried to talk about it with his dad once, and he told his dad what he believed, which I don't even know what, he was a child then, and his dad just said, oh, interesting, and wasn't supportive in any way or receptive in any way. And so then it turned it so then my son then, and I can't blame his father, like, I don't know but then my son, whatever little miniature faith he had, stopped, and he's not, I would not call him a believer, right? I think it's all pretend fairy tale, but yet for whatever reason that day he lost his check when he was out on the hammock, then he was actually, I wouldn't say he was praying, but he was like talking to God. And he was like, Mom, he was like, well, I was Mom. He's like, oh, I was talking to the sky. Because he was like, he's not at the point where he's like, I'm praying or I'm talking to God. But he was talking to God. And he was like, Mom, I was talking to the sky, and I was talking about how I'm a good person and I don't deserve this, and I've always been good to people. And he was like mad at God and about like, why is this happening? And, and he was just taking his frustration and his disappointment and directing it at God without really feeling like it was God. Like he said it was the sky. But because again, that's where he's at. And I've been there, so that's fine. And then, and so then when we gave him the check, and I was like, William, I think this is God. Like I hadn't known that story about how he was praying or talking to God about it. I didn't know that before he divulged that then. And I'm like, I think we need to, say thank you. And he, in his own way, said thanks to God and apologized to God. Because it did feel like we had help with finding that check. Like, how would we find his check randomly on the side of the road? Like, it's just odd. The whole thing is, how did he even get out of his pocket? How did the person who found it not steal the whole check? Just everything. There's so many layers of little check miracle for him. And it, to me, it felt like God helping him out and using that to connect with him, and probably keeping Will more open to the idea that he can speak to God and God can answer his prayers. So it just I told the story on my church today, and then somebody said that they would pray for him that his faith increases or something like that, and I was like, thank you, like I'm so thankful, like I hope she does. And anyway, it was just, normally those kinds of things that happen for my daughter because she's a little farther along in her journey. They don't usually happen for my son. So it just feels nice. Like, I hope he continues to see his own little miracles like this, and that his faith grows and gets stronger. But anyway, we're off topic. So that's one thing. And then the other thing was about a kind of shift happening, because that's what I was talking about in the last video, about all these different shifts happening at my little church, at my big church, with my son, and then also with my family. There's history that I'm not going into, if you're my family, you're aware of, and it feels like, and that stuff has come to a head, and a lot of that came to a head this year. And it feels like there's a shift. There's a subtle shift now, again, for good, for the better, starting to unfold. And so it just feels like God is birthing all these new things, and like birthing some change at my big church that we're going to see start to unfold. Birthing some change at my little church, and that we're going to see start to unfold. Birthing some change for the other pastor at his new church that we're going to see start to unfold. Birthing some change in my son that hopefully we will see start to unfold, and birthing some change in the situation with my family that we will see start to unfold. And that's what God is, and that's what God does. New life, all everywhere, for everything and for everyone. And it's just so interesting to see all these little subtle shifts everywhere around me. And so I'm just so thankful for that, and hope that continues, and that we see, like, because right now it just feels like in all of those areas we're just in the shifting stage, right? We're in the like contractions stage, and the birthing, like the almost like the earlier process, but we haven't seen like all the, I don't want to say fruit, but like I haven't seen the birthed babies yet. Like I'm curious, like what will come for the big church as these things change? What will come for the little church as these things change? What will come for the new little church as these things change? What will come from my family and my son as these things change? And what will come from my family and my dad and the siblings as these other things change? And I'm just so grateful to see the movement and the transition in all of these areas. So Sorry, I'm always crying, but it's okay that I'm crying in my context because I have a new box, so I can ruin these ones. But anyway, so that is all. Tonight I have, and then tonight I have my small group starting, which again, I'm just super hopeful that it's a good group and good people, and I'm looking forward to meeting the new people and having these connections and hope that they last. And today it's just the get to know you, like the mandatory session, and then tomorrow is the first real group. But anyway, so a lot of change this weekend, a lot of stuff that feels like it's shifting, and for the good, for the better, and honestly that's nice because it's been a hard 2022 in a lot of these areas. So anyway, that's it. Bye.